What happens when two of the most talked about women in the royal family finally come face to face on live television, with no palace handlers, no scripted responses, and absolutely nothing held back? You're about to witness the most explosive royal confrontation ever caught on camera, where Queen Camilla delivers a masterclass in royal protocol while completely dismantling Meghan Markle's carefully constructed narrative. Piece by devastating piece. This is the moment that sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace and left millions of viewers absolutely speechless. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you will not believe what unfolds in the next few minutes. The studio lights blazed as Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward at the view desk, her expression unusually serious for what was supposed to be a routine royal interview segment. Queen Camilla sat poised in the guest chair, her emerald brooch catching the light, while across from her, Meghan Markle shifted uncomfortably, clearly not expecting this particular guest to appear on the same show. "Well, this is certainly unexpected," Whoopi began, glancing between the two women. "We had Meghan scheduled for today's show, and then we received word that Her Majesty Queen Camilla would also be joining us. I have to say, the energy in this room is quite something." Meghan forced a smile, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Yes, well, I wasn't aware that we would be sharing the stage today, but I'm always happy to discuss the important work I've been doing with various charitable organizations and my experiences within the royal family." Queen Camilla's lips curved into what could generously be called a smile, cool and calculating. "Oh, my dear Meghan, I do hope you don't mind the surprise. When I heard you would be here discussing your version of events, I simply felt compelled to provide some much-needed context. After all, there are always two sides to every story, aren't there?" The tension in the studio was immediately palpable. Joy Behar cleared her throat, sensing the brewing storm. "Your Majesty, what brings you to the View today? This is quite a departure from your usual royal engagements." "Well, Joy, I believe in addressing misconceptions head-on, particularly when they concern the institution I have sworn to serve and protect. There have been so many narratives floating about, some more creative than others, and I thought it was time for a bit of clarity." Camilla's voice remained perfectly measured, but there was steel beneath the silk. Meghan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm not sure what you mean by misconceptions, Camilla. I've always been truthful about my experiences. Have you?" "Indeed." Camilla turned slightly in her chair to face Meghan directly. "Because from where I sit, and I do sit rather close to the center of things, you understand, your recollections seem to have quite a bit of creative license attached to them." Sarah N. jumped in, clearly trying to maintain some semblance of control over the interview. "Can we talk about what specifically you're referring to? Our viewers are probably wondering about the details here." Camilla nodded graciously. "Of course, Sarah. Let's start with something simple. Meghan, you've spoken at length about feeling unwelcome in the royal family, about not receiving proper guidance or support. Could you remind our viewers about the extensive briefings you received before your engagement was announced, the ones that lasted for months?" Meghan's composure flickered for just a moment. "Well, yes, there were briefings, but they were hardly comprehensive. I was thrown into situations without proper preparation. Thrown into situations—" Camilla's eyebrows rose delicately. "My dear, you had a team of private secretaries, protocol experts, and senior courtiers at your disposal, the same resources that have guided every member of the royal family for generations. The same resources that helped Catherine navigate her transition quite successfully, I might add. Catherine's situation was completely different." "Meghan," replied, her voice becoming slightly sharper. "She had years to prepare, and she didn't face the same level of scrutiny or racism that I experienced." Camilla leaned back slightly, her expression remaining perfectly composed. "Catherine had years to prepare because she understood the magnitude of what she was undertaking. She took time to learn, to observe, to truly understand the role before stepping into it. She didn't arrive with demands for immediate changes to centuries-old traditions." Whoopi sensed the conversation heating up. "Your Majesty, are you saying that Meghan didn't take the time to understand her role?" "I'm saying, Whoopi, that understanding a role and wanting to completely reimagine it are two very different things. The monarchy has survived for over 1,000 years because it adapts gradually, thoughtfully, with respect for tradition and the people it serves. When someone arrives with a list of demands and expects immediate wholesale changes, well, that shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what this institution represents. Meghan's face flushed slightly. I never made demands. I simply suggested ways that the monarchy could modernize and become more relevant to younger generations. Suggested. Camilla's tone remained pleasant, but there was a sharp edge to it. Now, is that what we're calling it? Because I recall several rather heated discussions about everything from official protocols to the guest list at your wedding, to your desire to monetize your royal status in ways that were simply not appropriate. The studio fell silent, except for the hum of cameras. Even the usually chatty hosts seemed stunned by the directness of Camilla's words. Meghan straightened in her chair, clearly deciding to abandon any pretense of pleasantries. I think you're mischaracterizing my intentions, Camilla. Everything I suggested was about bringing the monarchy into the 21st century, about making it more inclusive and accessible. Inclusive and accessible, Camilla repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. How fascinating that you frame it that way. Because from my perspective, what you wanted was to turn the royal family into a personal brand. To use your position for commercial gain while simultaneously criticizing the very institution that gave you that platform. The camera zoomed in on Meghan's face, capturing her struggle to maintain composure. That's completely unfair and untrue. Harry and I left because we were being destroyed by the British press and received no support from the family. No support. Camilla's voice rose just slightly, the first crack in her perfectly controlled demeanor. My dear girl, the resources that were mobilized to try to help you succeed were extraordinary. The palace staff who worked around the clock, the senior royals who cleared their schedules to mentor you, the Queen herself who bent over backwards to accommodate your requests, and yet nothing was ever quite enough, was it? Sunny Hostin finally found her voice. Your Majesty, what specifically are you referring to when you talk about accommodation? Camilla's eyes glittered with something that might have been satisfaction as she leaned forward to address Sunny's question. Well, Sunny, since Meghan seems to have forgotten, let me refresh everyone's memory. When she expressed concerns about her wedding tiara, the Queen personally opened the royal vault and allowed her to choose from pieces that most people only see behind museum glass. When she wanted her mother to have a prominent role in the ceremony, protocols that had been in place for centuries were quietly adjusted. Meghan's voice was tight when she responded. Those weren't accommodations. Those were basic courtesies that any bride should expect. Basic courtesies. Camilla's laugh was soft but cutting. My dear, do you have any idea how many royal brides throughout history would have given anything for such consideration? When I married Charles, I was grateful, simply to be accepted. I didn't arrive with a list of demands about how things should be different. Well, maybe that's the problem, Meghan shot back, her composure finally cracking. Maybe if more people had demanded better, the institution wouldn't be so outdated and irrelevant. The hosts exchanged glances, clearly recognizing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Whoopi tried to intervene. Ladies, perhaps we should focus on the positive aspects of royal life, the charitable work and public service. But Camilla wasn't finished. Outdated and irrelevant. The monarchy that oversees 15 Commonwealth realms, that supports over 3,000 charities, that provides stability and continuity in an increasingly chaotic world. The institution that has guided Britain through world wars, economic crises, and social upheaval for over a millennium. That institution is irrelevant. It's irrelevant to people who can't see themselves represented in it, Meghan fired back. It's irrelevant to young people who see an institution that refuses to acknowledge its colonial past or address systemic racism. Camilla set down her teacup with deliberate precision. Systemic racism. How interesting that you bring that up. Because I'd love to hear you explain exactly how the royal family was racist toward you. Not the press, not the public, but the family itself. Because I was there, Meghan. I witnessed every interaction, every conversation, every effort that was made to welcome you. The studio was dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to lean in closer. Meghan's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. You know what was said? You know the conversations that happened about my son's skin color. Do I? Camilla's voice remained perfectly level. Because I remember a grandfather excited about his new grandchild, wondering aloud, as grandparents do, about what the baby might look like. Will he have Harry's red hair? Will he have your beautiful complexion? These weren't racist conversations, Meghan. They were the innocent musings of a family anticipating a new arrival. That's not how it happened, Meghan insisted, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. Isn't it, though? Camilla tilted her head slightly. Because you see, my dear, when you make accusations like that, you're not just attacking individuals. You're attacking an institution that millions of people around the world look to for stability and hope. You're damaging something that belongs to far more people than just you and Harry. Joy Behar finally found her voice again. Your Majesty, Meghan has spoken about feeling suicidal during her time as a working royal. Surely the family's response to that crisis is what matters most here. Camilla's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. Mental health is incredibly important, Joy, and if Meghan was struggling, that's genuinely heartbreaking. But let's be accurate about what support was offered. There were multiple conversations about getting professional help. Resources were made available. The issue wasn't a lack of support, it was a reluctance to engage with the support systems that were offered because those support systems were controlled by the same institution that was causing the problem, Meghan interjected. How could I trust therapists approved by the palace? The same way that every other member of the royal family has managed their mental health challenges, Camilla replied smoothly. The same way that William dealt with his struggles after his mother's death. The same way that Charles navigated the aftermath of his divorce. The same way that I handled the decades of public scrutiny and hatred after Diana's death. We used the resources available to us, and we did the work. The comparison to Diana hung in the air like a challenge. Meghan's face flushed deeper. Don't you dare compare my situation to Diana's. She was beloved by the public. Eventually, yes, Camilla said quietly, but not initially, and certainly not by the establishment. The difference is that Diana understood something you never seemed to grasp. She knew that being royal meant serving something bigger than yourself. It meant putting duty before personal desires, even when it was difficult. Diana also died trying to escape the very system you're defending, Meghan snapped. The intake of breath from the hosts was audible. Even for the View, this was explosive territory. Camilla's composure never wavered, but her voice carried a new weight. Diana died in a tragic accident, fleeing photographers who were chasing her for the very same kind of celebrity coverage that you and Harry now actively court. The irony of that seems lost on you. Sunny Hostin jumped in, clearly trying to redirect. Your Majesty, what would you say to people who feel that the royal family hasn't done enough to address the concerns that Harry and Meghan raised? I would say that actions speak louder than accusations. Sunny, since Harry and Meghan left, the royal family has continued its work. We've supported diversity initiatives, mental health programs, and social justice causes, but we've done it quietly. Without press releases or Netflix documentaries, we've done it because it's the right thing to do, not because it generates positive headlines. Meghan leaned forward aggressively. And what about the headlines you're generating right now? This entire appearance is about defending your reputation. At our expense, my reputation. Camilla's eyebrows rose. My dear, I'm not here to defend my reputation. I'm here to defend the truth. Because when you go on international television and make claims about racism, neglect, and institutional cruelty, you're not just telling your story, you're rewriting history, and someone needs to provide the facts. Your version of the facts, Meghan countered. The version that can be verified by dozens of witnesses, documented in official records, and corroborated by people who were actually present for these conversations, Camilla replied calmly. Not the version that's been filtered through lawyers, publicists, and television producers looking for the most dramatic angle. Sarah N. tried one more time to find middle ground. Is there any possibility for reconciliation between the two sides of this family? Camilla considered the question for a long moment. Reconciliation requires acknowledgement of wrongdoing by all parties, Sarah. It requires a willingness to admit mistakes and move forward in good faith. I haven't seen evidence of that willingness from Harry and Meghan. Instead, I've seen a pattern of public attacks followed by demands for privacy, of claiming to want nothing to do with the royal family while simultaneously monetizing their royal connections. We left because we had no choice, Meghan insisted. We were being destroyed. You left because you wanted the benefits of royal status without the responsibilities, Camilla corrected. You wanted the global platform, the security, the privileges, and the wealth. But you didn't want the constraints, the protocols, or the service obligations that come with them. When you realized you couldn't have one without the other, you created a narrative that painted yourselves as victims rather than people who simply made a choice. The accusation hung in the air like a sword, and for the first time since the interview began, Meghan looked genuinely shaken. Her carefully maintained composure cracked completely as she stared at Camilla with undisguised fury. That is absolutely not true. We never wanted special treatment. We wanted basic human decency. Basic human decency, Camilla repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. Is that what you call demanding your own separate court? Your own independent media operation? Your own charitable foundation outside of royal oversight? Because that's exactly what you proposed in those final meetings, wasn't it, Meghan? You wanted all the perks of royalty with none of the accountability. Whoopi tried desperately to maintain control. Ladies, I think our viewers would benefit from understanding what exactly these final meetings involved. Camilla turned to address Whoopi directly, but her words were clearly meant for Meghan. The final meetings involved Harry and Meghan presenting what can only be described as an ultimatum. They wanted to be part-time royals, working when it suited them, living where they chose, and pursuing commercial ventures using their royal titles. When they were told that such an arrangement was impossible, they threatened to go public with damaging allegations. We never threatened anyone, Meghan protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Didn't you, though? Camilla's smile was razor-sharp. Because I distinctly remember Harry mentioning that if the family didn't agree to your terms, you had other options for telling your story. Other platforms where you could share your truth. Funny how that interview with Oprah was arranged so quickly after you left, almost as if it had been planned well in advance. The hosts exchanged stunned glances. This was beyond explosive. It was nuclear. Meghan's face was flushed with anger now. You're twisting everything. We left because we were being attacked daily by a racist press while the palace did nothing to protect us. The palace did nothing. Camilla's voice rose for the first time, her royal composure finally showing cracks. The palace issued unprecedented statements defending you. The palace changed centuries-old protocols to accommodate your wishes. The palace spent millions on security, staff, and support systems specifically for you. But none of that was ever enough, was it? Because what you really wanted was to control the narrative completely. I wanted to survive, Meghan shot back. I wanted my son to grow up knowing his heritage without being ashamed of it. And what heritage would that be exactly? Camilla leaned forward, her eyes glittering dangerously. Because from where I sit, Archie's heritage includes being seventh in line to the British throne, being part of a family that has served the Commonwealth for generations, and having access to opportunities that most children could never dream of. But instead of embracing that legacy, you've spent years teaching him that his father's family is racist and unwelcoming. What kind of heritage is that? The studio fell completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Meghan's voice was barely audible. I've never said his family was racist. Haven't you? Camilla tilted her head. Because sitting here today, listening to you, I hear nothing but accusations and resentment. I hear someone who has spent years crafting a victim narrative rather than taking any responsibility for the choices that led to this situation. Joy Behar made one last attempt to find common ground. Your Majesty, surely there's room for both perspectives here. Families have disagreements. Families do have disagreements. Joy, Camilla agreed, but families also have loyalty. They have discretion. They handle their problems privately with dignity and respect for one another. They don't air their grievances on international television for profit. Profit! Meghan's voice cracked with indignation. This was never about money. Wasn't it, though? Camilla's tone was almost gentle now, which somehow made her words even more devastating. The Netflix deal worth over $100 million, the Spotify contract, the book deals, the speaking engagements, all of it based on your royal connections, all of it trading on the very titles you claim to want nothing to do with. If this isn't about money, why haven't you renounced your titles completely? For the first time in the entire interview, Meghan had no immediate response. She opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly struggling to find words. Camilla pressed her advantage. The truth is, Meghan, you wanted to have your cake and eat it. 2. You wanted the global platform that comes with being royal, but you didn't want the responsibilities. You wanted the security and status, but you didn't want the scrutiny. You wanted to modernize an ancient institution, but you weren't willing to learn how it actually works first. That's not fair, Meghan whispered, but the fight had gone out of her voice. Fair. Camilla's laugh was soft but cutting. Was it fair to the Queen, who at 95 years old was dealing with family drama played out on the world stage? Was it fair to William and Catherine, who had to pick up additional duties while managing their own young family? Was it fair to Charles, who watched his son walk away from everything he'd been born to serve? Fair is a luxury that royals rarely get to enjoy, my dear. Sonny Hostin made one final attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Your Majesty, what would you want viewers to take away from this conversation? Camilla straightened in her chair, every inch the queen she had become. I would want them to understand that actions have consequences, that when you make choices, you must be prepared to live with the results. Meghan and Harry chose to leave the royal family. They chose to sign commercial deals, they chose to make public accusations. These were their choices, and they were free to make them, but they cannot expect to make those choices and then demand that everyone else pretend they were victims rather than people who simply decided they wanted a different life. She turned to look directly at Meghan for the final time. The door was always open for a different conversation, a private conversation, a family conversation. But that's not the path you chose. You chose publicity over privacy, profit over duty, and accusations over accountability. That was your choice to make, but don't expect the rest of us to pretend it was anything other than what it was. Meghan sat in stunned silence, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. The confident woman who had entered the studio was gone, replaced by someone who looked genuinely shaken by the systematic dismantling of her carefully constructed narrative. Whoopi cleared her throat, clearly eager to end what had become the most uncomfortable interview in The View's history. Well, I think we've certainly given our viewers a lot to think about today. Your Majesty, thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective. Camilla smiled graciously, her royal training allowing her to switch back to diplomatic mode effortlessly. Thank you for having me, Whoopi. It's been quite illuminating. As the cameras pulled back for the final shot, the contrast between the two women was stark. Camilla sat poised and composed, having delivered a master class in royal authority. Meghan remained slumped in her chair, looking like someone who had just realized that her version of events might not be as unassailable as she had believed. The credits began to roll, but the impact of what had just transpired would reverberate far beyond the confines of the television studio. In 20 devastating minutes, Queen Camilla had systematically dismantled years of carefully crafted narrative, leaving viewers with a very different understanding of the royal rift that had captivated the world. What did you think of this unprecedented royal showdown? Did Queen Camilla go too far, or was it time someone finally challenged Meghan's version of events? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more explosive content like this. I want to know, after watching this confrontation, do you think there's any chance of reconciliation between Harry, Meghan, and the royal family, or is this divide now permanent? Let me know what you think.